You know, Alex, I spent the first decade of my craft breathing in more walnut than a squirrel in November. I used to think a dust system was just opening the garage door and waiting for a stiff breeze.
Which explains why your lungs probably look like a topographical map of the Appalachians. Seriously, though, every time I walk in here, I'm shocked I don't see a single thin film of white on your coffee mug. How do you actually keep this place from becoming a localized dust storm?
It wasn't always like this. I remember one summer I was planting down a mountain of reclaimed oak. No collection, just a broom and a hope. By noon, I couldn't see the clock on the wall, and I was sneezing out enough fiber to start a paper mill. That was the day I realized that if you don't catch the wood at the source, the wood catches you.
Deep. But for the rest of us who aren't poetic about our sinus infections, where do we actually start? Because looking at the catalogs is like reading a foreign language. CFM, microns, static pressure. It's a lot of math for people who just want to glue two sticks together.
It is a bit of a swamp. But if you strip away the jargon, it's really just about lungs and pipes. You've got your shop vacs, which are like high pressure straws, and then you've got the big dust collectors, which are like giant fans moving massive amounts of air.
I've got the high pressure straw. It screams like a jet engine and follows me around the shop like a needy toddler. Does that count for everything?
Almost. The shop vac is the king of the small stuff. It's designed for high velocity, but low volume. Great for a sander or a biscuit joiner where the dust is coming out of a tiny hole. But you try to hook that shop vac up to a 20-inch thickness planer, it's like trying to drain a swimming pool with a cocktail stirrer. It just won't clear the chips fast enough.
So, the big green monster over there is the heavy hitter.
That's the lung. For machines like the table saw, joiner, or planer, you need high volume. That's your CFM, or cubic feet per minute. You're essentially trying to create a localized weather system inside the machine's cabinet so the dust has no choice but to follow the wind.
Okay, let's talk about that wind. One thing I see in your shop that I don't see in a lot of hobbyist setups is that giant cone-shaped thing before the bags. It looks like a spaceship part.
That's the secret sauce, Alex. That's a cyclone separator. Early on, I bought a cheap single-stage collector, the kind where everything, the big chips, the fine dust, the occasional stray screw, gets sucked directly through the centrifugal fan and slammed into a fabric bag.
Sounds like a recipe for a very loud metallic disaster.
It was. It sounded like a gravel truck being fed through a blender. But the real problem was the cake. The fine dust would coat the inside of the bag almost immediately, suffocating the motor. Within 10 minutes of planing, my suction would drop by half. A cyclone changes that. It uses gravity and centrifugal force to drop 99% of the heavy stuff into a barrel before the air ever touches the filter.
So the filter stays clean, the motor stays happy, and you aren't out there beating your dust bags like they owe you money every Friday.
Exactly. If you're building a system, put a separator in the line. Even if it's just a DIY bucket top version for your shop vac, it saves your filters and, more importantly, your sanity.
Speaking of filters, I read that the stuff we can see isn't the stuff that kills us. Is that true? Or is that just Big Filter trying to scare us?
No, that's the honest truth. A human hair is maybe 50 microns wide. We can see that. But the dust that gets deep into your lungs and stays there, that's 10 microns or smaller. The old school cloth bags on cheap collectors, they're basically dust sprayers. They catch the big chips, but let the invisible, dangerous stuff puff right through the fabric and stay airborne for hours.
So you're basically just turning your wood into a fine aerosol and sniffing it.
I did it for years. Now, I don't settle for anything less than a HEPA-rated pleated canister filter. It catches 99.997% of particles down to a fraction of a micron. It's the difference between a clean shop and a shop that just looks clean.
All right, Tiger, let's talk about the plumbing. I've seen guys use those flexible ribbed hoses for everything. They're easy, they're cheap. Why do you have this rigid metal setup that looks like it belongs in a commercial kitchen?
Friction is the enemy of airflow. Think of those flexible hoses like a mountain road with 1,000 potholes. Every rib in that hose creates a little eddy of air, slowing things down. By the time the suction reaches your saw, it's lost its punch.
So rigid is better. But isn't it a pain to install? I mean, move a tool 6 inches and your whole system is toast.
It's a chess game for sure. You use rigid pipe for the long runs and just a short whip of flex hose at the very end to give the tool some breathing room. And here's the part people mess up. They use 90-degree elbows.
Wait, what's wrong with a 90? I use them in my bathroom plumbing all the time.
Moving air hates sharp turns. If you slam 400 CFM of air into a 90-degree wall, it's like a car hitting a brick wall. It loses momentum. I always use two 45-degree elbows with a short straight section between them to make a long sweep. It keeps the air moving fast and prevents chips from clogging the corners.
You're basically an interior designer for air.
Hey, if the air isn't happy, I'm wearing a mask all day. And as much as I love a good respirator, I'd rather not feel like I'm Darth Vader just to cut a tenon.
Okay, I see these little sliding doors everywhere on your pipes. Is that just so you can pretend you're on a submarine? Close the blast doors, number 1.
I might have said that once or twice. Those are blast gates. If you leave every port in the shop open, your suction is spread way too thin. You want 100% of your collector's power focused on the one machine that's currently making a mess. You open the gate for the saw, close the rest. It's a simple dance, but it's the difference between a pile of sawdust on the floor and a clean cut.
What about the guys in tiny shops, the one-car garage warriors who have to park the Subaru in there at night? They can't exactly run 6-inch steel ducting across the ceiling.
I have a soft spot for the garage dwellers. I started in a basement where I had to duck under the floor joists. For them, I say, focus on portability. Get a decent 1-horsepower collector on wheels and one really high-quality 10-foot hose. Move the collector to the machine. It's an extra step, but it keeps the lungs close to the source.
And the overhead air cleaners, those little boxes with the fans that hang from the rafters, are they actually doing anything, or are they just white noise machines?
They're the scrubbers. They don't replace dust collection at the tool. That's your first line of defense. The overhead unit is there to clean up the oops particles, the stuff that escaped while you were hand sanding or that puffed out when you turned the saw off. Think of it like this. The dust collector is the trash can, and the air cleaner is the guy who mops the floor afterwards.
You know, we've talked a lot about the gear, but what's the one thing people do that just kills their system? The rookie move that makes all this expensive metal useless?
Oh, that's easy. It's probably fine mentality with the ports. I see guys take a 4-inch dust port on a machine and neck it down to a 2-inch shop vac hose using 3 rolls of duct tape.
Gucci to gas station engineering.
Exactly. You're choking the machine. It's like trying to run a marathon while breathing through a straw. If the machine has a 4-inch outlet, give it a 4-inch hose. If it's got 2 outlets, one on top, one on bottom, connect them both. Most people don't realize that the guard on top of the table saw is actually one of the most important dust collection points. That's where the fine stuff gets flung right at your face.
So, top and bottom collection is the gold standard.
It really is. It's the difference between I need to sweep later and I can go inside and have dinner without my wife telling me I smell like a cedar chest.
So, if someone is listening to this and they've only got $100 in a dream, what's the first move?
First move? Buy a high-quality, comfortable respirator. Not the cheap paper ones that leave a gap around your nose, but a real silicone half mask. Because even the best system in the world fails eventually.
Safety first, even if it's not the cool tool purchase.
Absolutely. Then, get a separator for your shop vac. It'll make that little vac act like a much bigger machine. From there, you just grow the system as your lungs demand it. Honestly, Alex, the best tool in my shop isn't the lathe or the fancy jointer. It's the air. When the air is clean, you can stay in here longer. You can focus. You aren't rushing the job just because you're tired of the grit in your teeth.
That's a good takeaway. Woodworking is supposed to be about the joy of the build, not the misery of the cleanup.
Spoken like a true person who doesn't want to sweep. But you're right. Treat your dust collection like a tool, not an accessory. Spend as much time thinking about where the waste goes as you do about where the wood goes. Your future self, the one who can still breathe at 70, will thank you for it.
Well, I'm convinced. I'm going home to reorganize my shop vac hoses and maybe stop using duct tape as a primary structural element.
Small steps, Alex. Small steps. Just remember, if you see a cloud, you've already lost the battle. Catch it while it's still in the wood.